Good evening and welcome to our live discussion. I am your host, Nadine Spence. Tonight we dig into the issues facing the agricultural sector, including drought conditions, escalating input costs, and invasive threats. To discuss, we are joined on the phone by Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, Pernell Charles Jr., and with us on Zoom, immediate past President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, Norman Grant. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night to you and good night, Norman.
Good night, Honorable Minister. How are you doing? Good night, Dr. Spence.
Good night. So let me start by I'm good. Let me start by asking the Minister, you know, the biggest challenges from your perspective facing the agricultural sector at this time.
I mean, our greatest concern right now must be just the weather conditions and the potential for this to be a prolonged drought. You have heard the Prime Minister earlier today speak of it being a meteorological drought, and that refers particularly to the rainfall patterns, which are right now touching almost, all parishes across the country. For us, we are concerned with the soil primarily, and so the rainfall dependency in our sector is what makes this, a great challenge. That's why you have heard us over the last year and beyond speaking about the importance of Essex Valley and the Southern Plain Agricultural Development Program, where we are pushing long-term sustainable investments in irrigation, so that when we have issues like this, the drought won't affect our capacity to produce. So the concern for us is that if this is prolonged, it will elevate itself into an agricultural drought, which really now refers to the issues regarding moisture in the soil, which affects the capacity for the crops to complete its developmental stages. And so we have been addressing it in the short term with the usual trucking and provision of equipment. We plan to buy another truck, another 4,000-gallon truck. We plan to continue and to ramp up in terms of putting out the water harvesting and the catchment ponds. We have 10 completed, 3 that are being done now, and 2 more coming with the Hills to Ocean program. We're also going to be continuing to give support to farmers with more seeds and support to livestock farmers with equipment. You will hear Norman speak about the importance of mulch, and that's something that we're also looking on as a climate-smart adaptation strategy. So we're going to help out some farmers with mulch to kind of keep the moisture in the soil. And we continue to do the usual in terms of support for drip irrigation. Now, it's never going to be enough, but we intend to ramp up. And in the short term, we will try and pull for some more funds to see that we can reach and spread across the country as much as possible.
Let me bring Mr. Grant in. Mr. Grant, the farmers and their reaction to what the minister just described, the meteorological drought. Are farmers reacting to it? Are they as concerned as the minister and the government seem to be?
Absolutely. As you know, that over 220,000 farmers have continued to play a critical role to the development of agriculture and the national development. What the minister has outlined has my total support, and I'm very, very happy for this intervention. The 100 million national program to which the agriculture sector will get some intervention is a start, but I'm sure that to continue this over 7% contribution to GDP and the tremendous contribution that agriculture continues to make, I'm sure that the minister will push, where it matters most to get, additional intervention. So the issue is that, as the minister outlined, a lot of our agriculture is dependent on the weather, and that is one of the things that I was pushing when I was president of the JS, and in fact, over a number of resolutions in the Senate was about rainwater harvesting as a fundamental part of the framework, and I'm glad that the minister have also spoken to that as well. I recall when I was head of the Caribbean Farmers Network, I went to Africa, that is Kenya, and I visited a coffee farm that is about 500 acres. It was hot like 2 times hell, but in the middle of that farm there was a huge dam, and they were able to continue to irrigate their coffee throughout the drought period. So I'm aligned with the overall vision and the strategy of the minister. We're going to have to go, expansive into mini dams, rainwater harvesting, and the whole issue of trucking. Indeed is a short-term measure, but is one that is very, very important at this time.
Minister, I'm hearing about the drought. I'm thinking about Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, Clarendon. Are those among the parishes that are listed as in that 11 as being impacted?
When we listen to the assessment today, it said that every parish in the country is experiencing some characteristic of meteorological drought. Only St. Elizabeth, actually, they said, received some more than average rainfall in January. But that's the assessment for January. When we look on February, even St. Elizabeth itself now, based on the information from farmers, is really seeing the existing characteristics of a drought. And as I said to you, it is really, for agriculture, it's not the rainfall. Because the rainfall is one thing. For us, it's about the moisture in the soil. So yes, once we are able to pump water and irrigate the field, even if there's no rainfall, the crops will grow. So the ultimate goal for us is to do what Norman said a while ago in terms of putting in place the structures for water harvesting so that you can catch what God gives you, but also putting in place the long-term piping and irrigation systems. And that network is what we're doing now. The largest capital investment, $4.4 billion, will be spent this year alone to pump water into our highest production zones. And we're going to be looking at expanding that to Petro Plains and other places. So it is a comprehensive approach that the government is taking to building the resilience of a sector which has provided 7.3% to the GDP, 7 consecutive quarters of growth, and 9.9% increase in domestic crop year after year. So this is important to us. We are trying to protect it. We're trying to promote our farmers and give them all the support. We know that you will still have persons who are not receiving what they think they should, and we ask those farmers to reach out to us. Talk to your RADA parish officers, talk to your extension officers, so that we can give you the support that you need. I was just going to ask you that, Mr. Grant, in terms of, how is RADA helping the farmers to deal with the current situation? How are farmers being contacted? How are they being supported? Or is that happening at all? Is there an attempt to kind of reach out to them, to kind of give advice, to talk to them about how they can respond?
Absolutely. RADA, in collaboration with the Jamaica Agricultural Society, continues to reach out to our farmers, the Jamaica 4-H with the young farmers, and those institutions, I think, are very, very fundamental in particular challenging time like these. So that is happening. What I would also like to see is a kind of ramp up in more funding for the National Irrigation Commission. I think it is a very important vehicle to drive irrigation, agricultural supply water to the farmers and build capacity through what I call the Water Users Association into those districts. Have an interagency approach with NIC, RADA, the JAS, 4-H, and all of those agencies. Because, when you have crises like these, you're going to need collaboration, you're going to need a sense of purpose, you're going to need a vision, and you're going to need a commitment to execute. As the minister says, that, listen, if agriculture catch a cold, the economy is going to have serious problems. And therefore, all hands have to be on deck to support the farmers and to provide the necessary infrastructure that is required to make that sustainable. So I'm totally supportive and aligned with what the minister has outlined. I think also that RADA, the JAS, and the 4-H, they're also playing their part. What I would like to see is that some of the 100 million that is provided in particularly to the agricultural sector, some of that be routed through those organizations, because there's a level of, association with the farmers, and there's also accountability, and they know the areas that requires the support, and they know the farmers as well.
Minister, you referenced just now the Essex Valley Irrigation Program. How far in it are we, and when are we likely to start seeing the impacts of it?
So we're back on track with both Essex Valley and SPAD. Of course, because of COVID, we have seen some delays, and that's just normal. Everybody understands the dislocation in terms of the supply chain. But we are on track in terms of the work that is to be done. Matter of fact, in some respect, for some of these programs, we're ahead of time based on the kind of commitment and work being done by our local contractors, who I must say have been doing a marvelous job. M&M is the company that has taken over the reins, and I must really acknowledge the hard work that they are putting in. I just wanted to say one thing, if you could. In addition to the 100 million announced by our Prime Minister today, the Ministry of Agriculture, through our agencies, we have already expended upwards of $90 million.
Wow,
and that's for this financial year. And we intend to spend another $110 million. That's activated already, in addition to the portion that we will receive for agriculture from the 100 million. So I put it in context so we understand the level of importance we are placing on agriculture. NIC, as was mentioned a while ago by Sir Grant, has already started to do canal and pipeline rehabilitation. We've started to do the rehabilitation of wells and extending the pumping hours for those wells. We're doing conversion of surface irrigation to pressurized systems. We're training farmers in terms of water efficiency and water utilization. We're developing new systems, and we're doing rotation of supply to make sure that we have as much efficiency as possible. So NIC is working, RADA is working, AIC is working, the ministry is working, and we are working with our stakeholders to see that we can protect what is a precious sector, and a sector who has received last year less than 2% and provided almost 400% more to the country. And this year we saw where we got a bump up to 2.13% of the national budget, and we're going to continue to see that we can provide even more. We want to go to double digits this year in terms of what we provide in terms of GDP.
Let me ask, Mr. Grant, the final 30 seconds to you. How is this likely to impact crop production and, what we see prices on the market for agricultural products this year?
Well, if there's a decrease in crop production, there's going to be an increase in prices. But I think that what is important is for the intervention to mitigate and manage that. There's also the impact on, disease and pest control, which can again impact production. So I think I'm very happy to hear about the 90 million that has been invested already by the ministry. I think that these interventions are very timely, very important, so that we don't really react, but we act in a proactive way to make sure that we mitigate any negative impact on the sector, because agriculture is so fundamental to the economic development.
And we have to end it there.
Have to give all of the support to the farmers.
Minister Charles, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Norman Grant, thanks for joining us this evening on our CVM Live discussion to talk about Jamaica's agricultural sector and the threat now facing the sector as a result of what is now referred to as a meteorological drought.